Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another thing where I talk about things. Today, I would like to talk about Batman vs. Superman. I'm rather late to the party, but I just recently saw the movie. I have been seeing a lady for a little bit named Claudia, and we decided to rent the Batman vs. Superman movie, and I had a chance to watch a fair amount of the whole thing through. The trouble with these movies is that they're not very captivating. Like, I saw Man of Steel, but I remember virtually nothing about it. And the reason is because I was on a plane when I saw Man of Steel. Actually, I also saw this one rather late. But I was flying on a plane, and we were flying through a storm. And I'm a very nervous flyer, as it is. I don't like to fly. I'm always afraid that planes will just spontaneously fall out of the sky, and I will perish in the ocean. And so I was trying to watch a movie to distract myself, and Man of Steel was doing like an awful job at holding my attention. So I far more vividly remember the storm and the turbulence than I do remember the movie. All I remember is that basically Man of Steel, in my opinion, was like somebody said, all right, look, I want to do a Superman film, but I want Superman to be even more boring than he's ever been. Like, as boring as possible. Like, imagine one of the most boring Supermans that you've ever seen, and then make him like a little more boring, but also angry, and then have him like kill people, and just be like a total bitch about the entire thing. Like, I want him to whine. I want him to be really unlikable. I want the audience to hate Superman, and that was like Man of Steel, in my opinion. Like, I just remember watching it, and gosh, he's just like, Superman is just such a mopey little whiner throughout the entire movie. It's like he can fly and shoot lasers and all these kinds of things, and he's like handsome, and he's got this girl but he's just a whiny little man, and I didn't like him at all. So Batman vs. Superman, I didn't really have high hopes for it, and I remember I was stunned because the early reviews were all like, this movie is awful. Like, do not go and see this movie. And then the day it opened up, they like smashed box office records. And I just had to kind of like throw my hands up and just be like, oh, man, like, I just don't know. I just don't know. Society, humanity, why? We are but apes. And then they also broke records for like fastest drop-off at the box office because the movie really wasn't that good. I mean, like, at the time, especially after the Dark Knight movies, even though the Dark Knight 3 was rather silly, you it would have been hard to go wrong with Batman at that point. Like, Batman had just gotten to be very popular. Everybody was excited about Batman. And so everybody went to go see Batman versus Superman, because Batman fighting Superman is one of those really kind of like cool concepts. Everybody likes it. And the comic that this was based on, I believe, is called The Dark Knight Returns. And I say I believe because it's been a little while since I've read it. I've read it. I borrowed it from a friend. I don't own it, and I don't own it personally. So I had it with me for a while. I read through the whole thing, and then I returned it to my friend. But anyway, the premise of The Dark Knight Returned was that Batman had gotten very old, and he kept trying to go into retirement, but he couldn't just let things sit. And so he kept coming back out of retirement, and he was getting old, and he was getting a little bit more clumsy, and more mistakes were being made, and he was getting to be more of a public enemy because he wasn't really being quite as nimble or as clever as he used to be. And when Batman came back on the scene, the Joker decided, like, oh, well, I'm going to come back too. And so the Joker kind of came out of retirement and killed a bunch of people. So anyway, though, Superman decides to step in and get involved because Superman is still young and handsome and superpowered and everything like that. And he's kind of fallen out of his idealistic situation and got into a rut where he's just working for the government. And, he just kind of goes where they tell him and he does what they tell him to do. So Batman doesn't approve of this, and Superman doesn't approve of what Batman is doing. So Superman comes out to fight with Batman, and that's not the entire comic. It's just one segment of the comic. But it was a sort of a fun, interesting comic. A lot of people really liked it. A lot of people regard it quite positively. The movie borrowed some things for that, including, for example, there's a scene where Superman gets hit with a nuclear bomb. The movie sets it up in a really, really weird way. The comic has it to where Ronald Reagan he's the president again for some reason. I think it's because the comic book was written when Ronald Reagan was the president. And anyway, though, Ronald Reagan upsets the Russians or something happens, and the Russians fire a nuke at the US. So Superman has to go and fly out and try to intercept the thing, and it blows up on him. And in the In the comic, this is part of how Batman survives his fight with Superman for a while, because almost immediately afterward, he gets in his fight with Superman. So Superman has been, like, hit with a nuclear bomb. He hasn't really had time to shake it off. He's still feeling a little bit wobbly. And then Batman chases him all over the place with, like, these... he's got these missiles that have, like, kryptonite warheads on them. And so he's, like, trying to blow up... you know, Superman with these kryptonite warheads. So he does this, and he just weakens him, and then, you know, he gets the one up on him. But eventually, Superman regains a second wind and thrashes Batman. Like, Batman theoretically might have been able to win, possibly, but for the most part, he probably only got the edge over Superman that he did because Superman didn't really want to kill him because they were old friends. And this is kind of the thing. It's got the dynamic that sort of works. But the Batman versus Superman movie, it's so strange because you just get the impression that, like, the director or somebody, whoever's in charge of the movie, like, they wanted the intellectual property because they knew it would sell, but they really didn't want to make a Batman or a Superman movie. Like, they kind of wanted to do superheroes, they kind of wanted to do action, but they really just didn't like Batman or Superman. For one thing, and a lot of people complained about this, but in multiple instances, like, Batman straight up murders people. And not only that, he'll shoot them with, like, guns. Like, I'm not totally sure, because I don't think Batman is supposed to do this. Like I was like, maybe they're shooting at Batman, and it looks like Batman is shooting at them. I'm not sure. That could be the bullets ricocheting. But I'm pretty sure that Batman had a gun installed on his Batcar, and that he was just straight up mowing people down with it. I'm pretty sure that's what was going on. I mean, there was a lot of action and stuff going on, but Batman was just driving around shooting people. And I'm quite positive that he had a cannon on his bat helicopter, his bat jet. It was like a Harrier jet, his Bat Harrier. And I'm pretty sure that he was mowing people down with the Bat Harrier too. There was one point where he, like, ties a car to the back of his Batmobile, and he's, like, just dragging it around, and there's, like, a man in this car, right? There's like a villain. There's a villain in this car, and so Batman just plows into him, probably kills the guy. Like, the car flies several feet and, like, lands on its back. So Batman has probably killed the guy inside, but just to make sure, Batman attaches a cable to the car and then, like, drives down the road, towing the car, like, upside down across the road, like, the sparks are flying out. And then eventually he uses the cable to throw the car at another car, and it crushes the other car and kills the guys in that car too. And it was kind of a cool scene. Like, I enjoyed watching that, like, that just kind of the visual, like, the sheer stupid over the top, like, here, come across the car with the other car. Like, it was fun, and I like to see it, but it wasn't a really very Batman thing to do. And so much of that, it was just, like, weird. It was like, yeah, this is Batman, but I mean, he's not really doing any kind of, like, Batman sort of stuff. Or he just didn't follow very many Batman principles. Like, they had some things. There was weird, like, it was, like, clear that people were familiar with the source material, but just they had decided that it was dumb and that they had a better version. You know, it was like, I'm gonna do better Batman. Batman's gonna be even better in my book. And then I don't know. Like, you could like it more, but it just wasn't the same Batman. So right away, I had to make peace with that. I'd just be like, this isn't really Batman versus Superman. This is, like, weird, reimagined Batman. Like, what if Batman were grittier and murdered people? He also had this thing. He had, like, a brand, like a pair of, like, brass knuckles that he would heat up, and if he caught you, he would, like, put the Bat brand on you. And that was, like, another one of those things. Like, I remember when I was a kid watching the Batman cartoons, like, Batman always worked closely with the police. Like, Commissioner Gordon and him would have conversations, and you know, he was considered, like, the Bat detective, and Commissioner Gordon respected him as such. It was kind of like there was sort of an understanding, and Batman didn't cross certain lines, and he kept people in the loop, more or less. Not all the time, but I mean, at least a little bit. But yeah, I think that if Batman were running around, like, with a hot poker, like, putting a Bat brand on people, like, Commissioner Gordon would pull him aside and just be like, all right, Batman, listen. like you brought in that coke dealer, you know, he's like a 14-year-old kid, 13, 14-year-old kid, and you branded his forehead with the Bat symbol. Like, that's not cool, Batman. You can't do that. You can't do that. He's only a kid. Like, you can't be doing this to people. So, yeah, a little bit weird. Superman, though, continued also to be a plank of wood, a horrible plank of wood. Hated everything about him, didn't care anything at all about what was going on with Superman. In fact, I can't recall what any of Superman's major conflicts are, except for that he couldn't get over himself. That seemed to be his main problem. The other thing too, and part of the issue with this movie, is that the guy who plays Superman is just a incredibly wooden actor in these movies. Like, he's so bad at his deliveries. There's one scene that I thought was really funny, and it just cracked me up because he's having a conversation with Lois, and she's like, I just want you to represent something to people. I want this to mean something. And she points to the symbol on his chest, the S, and he goes, on my planet, it did mean something. And this is because in the movie, they decided that the S actually meant it was like symbolic for something. It meant like hope, or like that you like wrangle chickens or something like that. Like, it had some kind of symbolic meaning on Krypton. And so Superman goes, on my planet, it did mean something. And the delivery is really wooden. Like, you get this sense that the actor's not really sure why he's saying that. Like, he's just like, on my planet... On my planet, like, they could have hired Ben Stein to be Superman, and it would have been just as convincing and just as compelling. But it was weird for a number of reasons, and like, he flies off. He like melodramatically flies off. He's like, I'm leaving now. I'm leaving now. On my planet, this was a serious thing, and I just really wanted Lois to like just gently take him by the arm and be like, Superman, on our planet, an S also means something. You see, an S is the letter S. We use that to make this sound. It's a symbol. It does mean something on the planet Earth. In fact, most people look at the S and they probably assume that it stands for super. I'm starting to feel concerned that maybe it stands for stupid. But, it's alright. Superman, stupid man, just you run with Superman. Everyone is more happy about Superman, but stupid man would also fit. So, there was that. The fact that, S actually does have meaning on the planet Earth. In fact, he has the S on his chest because originally, Superman put that S there to stand for super. And the whole, like, it meant something on Krypton thing was just some crap that this movie injected. So it was so stupid. Like, only on my planet does S have any real meaning. Only on my planet is S an actual symbol with some kind of, like, intrinsic value to people. So I just kind of love that. It's like, no, Superman, an S is like an S. Like, an S does... Like, this is like, say, like, this is like if you had an @ symbol, like the little @ that you like at yahoo.com or at gmail.com, and saying like, no, on my planet this means like toaster strudels, and you'd be like, oh, well, on our planet it's like a symbol. Just never mind, go fly out, go be melancholic somewhere else. You're stupid, I hate you. So yeah, lots of weird scenes like that, just with Superman, I don't know, delivering these wooden performances and just being like, I am the saddest of the Supermen. I am the only of the Supermen. There was, I don't remember a lot from Man of Steel, but there were callbacks to that. And apparently I think that General Zod came and fought with Superman. That's what I say, like, this goes to show how little attention I was able to pay to Man of Steel. Like, I watched the whole movie, and all I really gathered from it was that I hate Superman. Because I hate Superman and I hate flying were the two things I took home from that movie. And I guess that General Zod's airplane, or his spaceship crashed in Gotham or Metropolis or one or the other, and the two cities are just like across from each other, like across the river. I'm not sure if that always was the case in the comics. I don't think that Metropolis was actually quite that close to Gotham. I think you had to like get on a plane for them to go meet, because that, like, one of them is like kind of got the old the Gothic style, and the and Metropolis is kind of like more modern and everything like that. So it wouldn't make really that much sense for there to be this huge aesthetic divide between the two of them if they were just like right across, they're just like sister cities. But anyway, in the movie they were, so Superman just had to fly across the ocean, or excuse me, he just had to fly across the river to go see Batman. But so Lex Luthor was in this movie, and this was another character that just went to show that, like, the directors didn't really want to do a Superman movie, because Lex Luthor was there, and he wasn't Lex Luthor. And again, it's just like really weird. It was like, no, I want to do a movie and I want the intellectual property, but I don't really want to do anything with any of these characters. Like, I hate these characters. And so we had Lex Luthor, and instead of being this like ambitious businessman, which you got from some of the cartoons back when I was younger, or being like this completely idiotic evil guy, this bald evil guy, which is what you got in the old Super Friends things, the old Super Friends cartoons, you got like a guy with a huge, like, he had a head full of hair, and he was like really young, and he was a really bad public speaker, and he was kind of what I've heard some people say, he was channeling like Heath Ledger's version of the Joker, and I think that's fair. Is it seemed like they were going for that kind of oh, he's a little bit crazy. Because he's like, oh, yes, we've come full circle. No, not a circle, a triangle. A triangle with oblique sides and a 90-degree angle, and I don't know how it's possible. So yes, he had this kind of weird, like, over-the-top performance. And again, I actually didn't dislike him. Like, I sort of enjoyed this guy's performance as Lex Luthor. I mean, like, it wasn't bad. Like, as a villain, I was perfectly fine with him. It wasn't Lex Luthor. And this is the weird thing. Like, it was like that scene. Like, I didn't hate that scene with Batman. Like, that was kind of a fun scene where he threw the car. But it's just, like, it wasn't like a Batman thing to do. And Lex Luthor was the same way. It was like, I kind of like this character. But he wasn't Lex Luthor. He wasn't that character. So, yeah, Lex Luthor was, like, crazy and weird and, like, had a speech impediment. He couldn't, like, communicate very well. And he was doing this, like, sort of... And he still kind of had some of the trappings of Lex Luthor, that he owned LexCorp and he was doing research on stuff. But, his motivation didn't really make a whole lot of sense, except for the idea that he was crazy. I think he just wanted to kill Superman because he disliked how powerful Superman was. And, I don't know, he got into, like, General Zod's ship. And he created this villain called Doomsday. And if you're not familiar with the comics, and I think like most people probably are, I don't know how well they could get away with this, but Doomsday was a character that like killed Superman in the comics. And Doomsday was another alien. He wasn't a Kryptonian. He wasn't from Krypton. He was like an alien that was specifically designed. I can't remember exactly all his backstory. But he came to Earth, and then he basically beat up the Justice League single-handedly, like literally single-handedly. He had an arm tied behind his back, because when he crashed onto Earth, it was from like some kind of prison coffin or something like that. And he was in restraints, and so he was able to break one arm free of the restraints, but he couldn't break the other arm free. So with a single arm, he beat up most of the Justice League, and then he had to get his second arm free to kill Superman. And that's what he did, is he straight up just killed Superman. But he was his own sort of thing. He was his own sort of space alien. And for some reason, the movie decided that he needed to be related to this whole Krypton thing. And this was very short. It was a very short fight. And, I don't know what to say. I feel rather ambivalent towards the whole thing. By this point in the movie, I mean, like, this is kind of what you really went to go see the movie for, was kind of the action stuff. Because if you went for the acting or the story, you would be supremely disappointed. I think the only character who I really liked was Lex Luthor. Batman himself had some amusingly over-the-top scenes, but as a guy, he was also sort of hateable. He wasn't really a very interesting character. There was also like a lot of foreshadowing to like sequels that they were going to do of these movies, because they're kind of trying to compete with the Avengers. You can tell they're trying to take like the entire intellectual property and they just want to put it out there, and get everybody like, here's the Flash, and they want to do all this because Marvel's had success with like, here's the Avengers movie, oh, and we're also doing a Captain America movie and a Thor movie, and then everyone goes and they see those other movies because they liked Avengers a lot and they want to see these other characters go off and do things. They're trying to get that same thing, but it's weird, and I don't think it's going to work because they so clearly hate the original intellectual property that they're working with. Like, Marvel changes things. Marvel has been changing things with the movies, to make them all fit into a 2-hour thing. But you get more the sense that there's, like, a lot of love going into it. It's kind of like, how do we bring Iron Man to the big screen, Like, how do we make this work? Like, we get these actors, and, like, we need a guy who just can play this chicanerous, like, rich guy who's, and they got in, like, Robert Downey Jr., and he does, like, a great job as Iron Man. He plays this really likable character. You kind of like, he plays, like, a bit of a jerk, but he's also got, like, a lot of swagger, and he's got a lot of charisma. And so you just get this impression, like, yeah, this rich, intelligent playboy, and he makes this, like, really cool suit, and all the scenes are a lot of fun, and, I don't know, there's love for Iron Man and Thor and Captain America and all these other characters. There's clear interest in that intellectual property. But with the Man of Steel and like Batman versus Superman, it's just more like they want to distance themselves from it. They don't really want to have anything to do with it. They think it's stupid and they think they could do it better. And so they're like, how do we take these movies and make them better than the original Batman and Superman? And so they just make all these changes, and it's sort of like, this This is not really Batman and Superman. Like, I don't dislike everything about it, but it's terrible in a lot of ways. Like the guy playing Superman is pretty much single-handedly. I feel like that guy's performance could sink quite a lot of the movies. And the more they write him out of dialogue, and the less they do with him, probably the better off they're gonna be if they continue to make movies with them. But another interesting thing, though, is that this is, I think, all being produced by Sony. And it's kind of funny because, like, Sony has just been crashing and burning hard on so many movies. Like, they had the Ghostbusters come out, and the entire thing that was going for Ghostbusters, no matter how you felt about it, like, the most positive reviews I've heard of it that seemed honest were ones that were just like, it was okay. And this coming from people who didn't really care very much about, the intellectual property of Ghostbusters. It was just sort of like, it was fine. It was like Ghostbusters, but with women. Like, it was fine. And there was a lot of stupid stuff that came out about it. Like, I saw people say it. Like, there was one quote that people were spreading around that was like, "Women are funny. Get over it." And it was kind of like, okay, I'm over it. Like, I don't know. Like, that's it. So now that I'm over it, what? Like, do I go and I like, is the movie good or no? And it's kind of like, well, I don't know, it's sort of mediocre. It did okay. It pulled in good at the box office, and I don't know. It faded pretty quickly as far as like people talking about it, because it wasn't really that controversial. And this is another thing that was weird: is Wonder Woman is in the Batman versus Superman thing, and a lot of the things, a lot of the promo stuff, they kept putting like Wonder Woman, not like they had the trio, like here's Batman, here's Superman, and then they would put Wonder Woman at the front of the whole thing, and they would make it look like she was the star of the movie. And really, like, she was important for, like, she showed up in the battle, and she was probably one of the more she hadn't developed a lot of time to make me hate her yet. So to be honest, of the three people fighting, the three heroes fighting at the end of that movie, I was most interested in seeing what Wonder Woman could do, and I was kind of like having fun watching her do her stuff, running around with her sword and her shield and everything. And she had the lasso, which I thought was kind of funny. The lasso really jarringly contrasted with the sword and the shield bit and all her superpower. But I was kind of interested in seeing Wonder Woman. But regardless, it was a weird sort of thing to do on a promotional level, because Wonder Woman was more like featuring Wonder Woman would be the way to put it. She appeared, but the movie really was so not about her, and like the only reason why they were putting her front and center is, I assume, for the feminist angle, the same thing that they were doing with the Ghostbusters thing. And I'm starting to wonder, like, if there's someone at Sony, like, are they trying to be clever? Like, are they trying to push the feminist thing because they think that it's going to make money right now because it's kind of in vogue? Or is there someone at Sony and they're kind of an idealist and they just don't really, like, maybe they're not a very good, like, marketer or something like that? Because a lot of the controversy that came up around Ghostbusters, it felt very trite and very stupid. Like, I'd seen these arguments kind of hashed out before, and Ghostbusters wasn't really that groundbreaking. They weren't really doing anything too amazing. Like, people got like I don't know, the controversy just felt like there were people talking about, like, oh, Ghostbusters is Gamergate's worst nightmare of all things, and it was kind of like Gamergate has sort of died down. That was like a 2015 thing. Like, I'm aware that there are still people fighting that battle, but it was, as far as being a thing, it's kind of died down. And so it was like they missed the bus on that in a couple of ways. Like, if they had put out Ghostbusters in 2015, a lot of people might have gone to see it, and a lot of people might have gone to defend it. But I think the public conscience is starting to get tired of the identity politics a little bit. It might be getting to where it's oversaturated, and people are sick of being aware, because a lot of it's been kind of like deconstructive and negativity. Like, they're raising awareness of, like, everything sucks and this sucks and you should feel bad about how much this sucks and these people suck the most and you should be angry at them. And you know, you can't maintain that for very long. Like, people get exhausted of that. You need to give them time to, like, sit down and catch a breather and recoup and be happy again. And then you can come back and you can throw more misery in their face. So I think that just 2015 really sapped a lot of people's willingness to be controversial with this stuff. And so they're coming around, they're like, you know, like, feminism, and if you don't want to see the Ghostbusters, then you're a misogynist. And, like, there are still people who wanted to fight about it, but my impression was just, you know, everyone, the wind was out of their sails, and just like, yeah, you know, whatever. If it comes out into a mediocre movie, then I'm vindicated, and that's about all I gotta do. But the Wonder Woman thing is same deal, strange deal. I just get the impression that she was on the front of the cover, not because she was a really pivotal character, but just because, you know, they were. I remember there being some controversy surrounding this, as they were like, yeah, Wonder Woman moved to the front of the thing, you know, women's rights, and it was kind of like, but she didn't do anything. And there's this weird, well, I mean she did, but she wasn't really it wasn't central. I don't know, it's just weird. But Sony has been eating a lot of crap. I don't know, like I say, Batman vs. Superman, like, killed at the box office initially and then dropped way off. I don't know if they're making profits. Maybe the controversy is working. Maybe I'm mistaken. Part of what I've done is I eventually just quit clicking on anything that had to do with identity politics. And the SEO has done most of the work for me. This is what's weird about politics anymore, is as soon as you quit paying attention to this stuff, it just disappears. Like, as soon as I quit clicking on those links, as soon as I quit demonstrating to the search engines that I was interested in that stuff, I just quit seeing it. So to me, it feels like people have gotten exhausted with it, but that's because I got exhausted with it and I just quit looking at it. So maybe the broad public is still seeing a lot of that, and they're still going to see, like, oh, I'm gonna go see Ghostbusters to support this ideology, or whatever, or I'm gonna go see Wonder Woman. You know, I'm gonna go because they put Wonder Woman in front, and that's progressive. But overall, Claudia dozed off during the movie. I don't really remember what most of the core conflict was about. It wasn't really a Batman or Superman movie. Lex Luthor wasn't really in it. Oh, they killed Mercy. If you're familiar with Mercy, Lex Luthor's, I believe she was a secretary and also a chauffeur in the animated series. That one was really weird. Like, I don't know why they included Mercy, because the only people who would have recognized Mercy were likely people who probably liked Mercy and who would have been fans of Mercy, who would have had the nostalgia there to be like, oh, hey, it's Mercy, cool. Like, I like that character. And then they killed her. And I was like, why? Like, why? Why would you introduce this character and explicitly say, yes, this is Mercy, here she is, and then kill her? Like, why? Like, clearly they just hate the characters. I don't know. Supposedly they also killed Jimmy Olsen. I don't remember if that was in the Man of Steel or if that was at the start of Batman vs. Superman, but in the director's cut of one of those two movies, they killed Jimmy Olsen. And it's weird. It's super weird and a little bit, I don't know, like, dickheaded, I think, to be doing that. Like, if you don't like those characters, they're really like auxiliary characters. They don't need to be introduced just to be killed. Like, if Lex Luthor didn't have, like, if Mercy wasn't in a movie that had Lex Luthor in it, most people wouldn't say anything, because Mercy is sort of a less recognized character in the property. I don't know. It was just super weird. It was like, yes, this is Mercy. Boom, Mercy is dead. Like, what? Why? I don't get it. But, yeah, I don't know. Movies. There's not a lot of good movies that have come out in a little bit. I mean, I miss Civil War. I want to go see Civil War. Everyone told me that Civil War was really good, and I didn't get to go see it. I was told that Finding Dory was alright, that it was cute. Didn't hear any, like, rave reviews about that, but, you know, it was a kid's movie, so kids probably really liked it. What else? I think that's it. So anyway, though, I suppose that'll be it for today. Thanks for joining me, everybody. I will catch you all next time.